Welcome to How Should We Now Live in the 21st Century? My name is Duncan. We are all wounded one way or another, and wounds leave scars. This video is about wounds to our souls, not the ones to our bodies. Wounds range from shallow to those that are very deep. Some wounds have been caused by other people, but all too often they are self-inflicted. One important reason God gave us commandments was to protect us from wounding our own souls. For example, when our two daughters were quite young, they, like all of us, found reasons to break the New Testament commandment, do not lie. We told them that when we lie, we put boo-boos on our brains. Lying is but one example of how we inflict wounds on ourselves. There are different ways to deal with wounds. Sometimes we pretend they don't exist. Sometimes we use them as an excuse. Other times we hide them, not wanting anyone to see our weaknesses caused by the wounds. A conclusion we must draw here is that our wounds often rule our lives. Thomas, an original disciple of Jesus, most likely watched the crucifixion of Jesus from a distance. That was his mentor, his friend, and his teacher hanging there. As Jesus died, Thomas must have felt overwhelmed and very much in despair. He had thought that Jesus was going to lead him and his friends to many victories over past wounds. But no, Jesus was dead, and all Thomas's hopes died with him, causing his wounds to be magnified. Not long after Jesus was resurrected from the dead, several of Thomas's fellow disciples came to him very excited. They told him that they had seen Jesus, now very much alive, no longer dead and in the grave. Still being overwhelmed with despair, Thomas said, "Unless I see in his hands the scars from the nails, and put my fingers into them, and put my hand into his side, I will not believe." Several days later, Jesus appeared to Thomas. Looking at him, Jesus said, "Look at my hands and my side. Reach your fingers into the holes. Do not be unbelieving, but believing." During an Easter Sunday sermon at his church, my friend Steve used Thomas as the centerpiece of his message. He made an interesting observation that set off thoughts leading to this video. Steve asked a question that went something like, should we expect that a resurrected body be perfect in every way, which would include not having any scars? As Thomas found out, the resurrected body of Jesus did have scars, one in each hand, one in each foot, and one in his side. When we realize that the scars of Jesus are there, in part because of our sins, we can either ignore them, be overwhelmed with remorse because of guilt, or as Thomas did, with great joy, confess Jesus as my Lord and my God. His undeserved scars remind us no matter how wounded we are, and no matter how we got wounded, we are loved by our Creator, and by his stripes, we are healed from our wounds. His scars also remind us that even though we are all sinners, we do not have to cower away from the scars of Jesus, letting them remind us that for the joy set before him, that's Jesus, he endured the cross, despised the shame, and endured such hostility from sinners against himself. When we trust in Jesus, you and I are his joy, and that's why he allowed himself such pain. The fact of his resurrected body, even with the scars, also remind us of his power over death and over our scarred lives. He is alive from the dead and wants to set us free from our wounds, self-afflicted or not. As we experience being set free, let's tell others so that they too can experience freedom. Freedom from the scars of sin, freedom from the power of death, and freedom to have a life that really makes a difference in our lost and dying world. So how shall we now live in the 21st century? By placing our wounds in the nail-scarred hands of Jesus. Thank you for watching. If this video and YouTube channel are a blessing, please subscribe, like, and tell others. Special thanks to Steve Stratos and St. Paul's Church of Palmer.